question. Tonight, Daily Mail star columnist Amanda Plattel, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster Ashley James. Should Boris go to war with the European Union by scrapping the Northern Ireland Protocol? Well, Nigel Farage says absolutely. He'll give a rallying cry in What the Farage at 9:45. Should the Queen get to keep the perks of being a royal when she cannot fulfil her duties? Well, Daily Mirror Associate Editor Kevin Maguire sparked massive online outrage with that controversial suggestion. He'll be here to battle it out with Conservative commentator and proud royalist Calvin Robinson in The Clash at 9:20. As Joe Biden's sister gives her approval, would you want to see Meghan Markle as US president? Well, the best Meghan stateside, Meghan Kelly, will give her thoughts on whether we could one day see a royal in the White House at 9:30. Does the BBC throw in £50 million down the drain on ridiculous Marcus research to find out what we really want to watch prove it's a dying institution? Well, columnist extraordinaire Rod Liddell is outraged and uncancelled at 10:40. He's become one of the most high-profile victims of cancel culture in this country, despite leading the charge for more investigation into potential vaccine damage suffered by athletes. Former England footballer Matt Le Tissier joins me live for an exclusive interview at 10:20. Why on earth is Sadiq Khan on a jolly to New York while London continues to spiral into lawlessness? I'll sound off on that and the failed mayor's damning accusation against Donald Trump next in my digest. And as Spain rebels against so-called drunk tourism, do Brits abroad give the rest of us a bad name? Plus, Michael Gove has shown off his acting chops in a viral clip. That's split opinion.
Turning it into a major capital letters, a big news story.
It's made me laugh, actually. What, is that a bit of harmless fun? Or, if you're po-faced, a sign that he's not taking the cost of living crisis seriously? We'll break that all down in the Media Buzz later. Don't forget to, this is where you need to be to get a first look at tomorrow's newspapers' front pages throughout the show. Plus, which pop star is in the running for tonight's Greatest Britain after finding himself at the centre of perhaps the most humiliating court testimony in British history? GBUJ will close us out just before 11, so stay up with us. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Just one thing first, though. Finally, the rest of the world is seeing sense and realising the pathetic face snappies we've been forced to endure for much of the past 2 years are completely pointless COVID theatre. Today, the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control finally conceded the wearing of face masks in airports and on European flights is, quote, no longer recommended. Unmuzzling passengers will avoid hysterical scenes like this.
So you've just told me I can't get on the
Sorry,
flight.
do you want the airport police to remove you from the airport?
Remove what?
You're not allowed to do that.
Not going to happen. Okay. So I'm now getting removed from the airport because I haven't got a mask to wear on a plane.
Solamente los stewards only, okay?
He didn't say anything.
See you later.
Goodness me, we just went mad. Mandatory muzzles must never return. But let me tell you, my superstar panel, they're unmuzzled and they're ready to unleash on failed London Mayor Sadiq Khan in just a moment. Let's take a first look at them. Tonight, the Daily Mail columnist, the sensational broadcaster, there she is, Amanda Plattel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and she's back, the broadcaster Ashley James. But before all of that, the news with Miranda Shunka.
Thank you, Dan. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has today signed historic security agreements with Finland and Sweden, vowing the countries will assist each other against any military attack. The declarations will intensify intelligence sharing, joint military training and bolster security. Finland and Sweden are considering joining NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's despite threats from the Russian president. Speaking at a joint news conference in Finland, Boris Johnson said the war has changed the equation of European security.
We've seen the end of the post-Cold War period, and the invasion of Ukraine, sadly, has opened a new chapter. And it would be fair to say that it has also brought Finland and the UK even closer together today. So the security declaration, the solemn declaration we've signed today, ensures that our two nations can intensify our partnership and take it to unparalleled heights.
Well, former Conservative Party leader Sir Ian Duncan-Smith says Russia's aggression has made countries rethink their approach to security.
The one thing about this Ukraine crisis is it's reminded a very complacent free world that these freedoms are not free. They have to be, you have to prepare to fight for them. And what we've done is we've dealt, I think, too long. We've dealt with the world as we wish it would be, not prepared to deal with the world as it is.
Ukraine says negotiations are underway to swap Russian prisoners of war for badly injured defenders in the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. Newly released footage shows smoke rising above the plant as shelling continues. Ukrainian forces continue their counter-offensive in the Kharkiv region, this video appearing to show a Russian tank being destroyed. UK military intelligence says Ukraine has successfully struck Russian air defences and supply lines with drones. The disappearance of 15-year-old Maddie Thomas from Bristol is being treated by police as child abduction. The teenager vanished on April the 26th after leaving her foster parents' address in the Southmead area of the city. Officers believe she's likely to be with a man and they're concerned about her safety. And the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall have hosted the first royal garden party at Buckingham Palace since 2019. The Queen was not in attendance due to her ongoing mobility issues, but Charles and Camilla spoke to a selection of the 8,000 guests in attendance. Garden parties have not been held at the palace for 3 years due to the pandemic. Well, on TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
So yesterday, Twitter's new owner Elon Musk made an important free speech intervention and declared that permanent bans should be reversed, rightly allowing Donald Trump back onto the platform.
Are you planning to let Donald Trump back on?
I guess the answer is that I would reverse the perma ban. Obviously, I don't own Twitter yet, so this is not like a thing that will definitely happen, because what if I don't own Twitter? But my opinion, and Jack Dorsey, I want to be clear, shares this opinion, is that we should not have perma bans. I think perma bans just fundamentally undermine trust in Twitter as a town square where everyone can voice their opinion. It was I think it was a morally bad decision, to be clear.
An eminently sensible position from Musk to reverse the left-wing echo chamber that Twitter has become by embracing cancel culture. Now, who popped up almost immediately to comment on Musk's intervention as if he's some sort of second-grade US chat show pundit on MSNBC? None other than London's failed Mayor Sadiq Khan.
He breaks the rules. There needs to be consequences. What we can't afford to happen is a situation where people think social media is a space where you can behave irresponsibly, where you see an increase in not just racism and sexism and misogyny, but also division. I think I'd hope that Elon Musk, those in charge of Twitter, understand that.
See those lovely trees? That beautiful weather? That's because Khan is at Stanford University, the most uber-liberal educational institution in the world. And this Californian trip is part of a tiki tour of left-wing America, which has seen Khan branded a, quote, rock star by the equally fame-hungry New York Mayor Eric Adams, even though anyone who knows anything knows that Khan is running lawless London into the ground.
Among the mayors, you like the rock star of mayors, you know?
I'm sorry, why the hell is Sadiq Khan on a jolly around New York and Los Angeles to meet more champagne quaffing members of the rich liberal elite who have no idea of the transport and crime hell he has inflicted on the UK's biggest city? Now, the official reason is their launch of a £10 million tourism campaign. But we all know what's really going on. This egomaniac doesn't give a damn about fixing London. All he cares about is adding to his personal celebrity. But serious questions must be asked by London citizens about Khan's so-called fact-finding mission to California to meet health officials and trade groups to discuss the legalisation of cannabis. London is already awash with drugs and drug dealing unrestrained by police. I see it in my own East London neighbourhood every damn night after I return home from this show. Now, you might remember Khan launched a review last April about the feasibility of decriminalising cannabis. It's a total waste of money and nothing more than an ego trip for him, given that his role as London Mayor does not even give him the power to decriminalise the wacky-backy. What's more, it even goes against Labour's new hardline drug policy. Ironically, Labour, his party, had released attack ads before last week's local elections, chastising the Lib Dems for wanting to decriminalise drugs. Make no mistake, Sadiq Khan is destroying the UK's biggest and most important city. That is a story of national importance. I was travelling to work today in a black cab, and the frustrated driver, Lee, had posted this message on his little window, explaining how TfL have used lockdown to make London as unpleasant as possible to drive. And this little note, which was brilliant, actually, it concluded, London taxis, still driven by comedians, still the best, but unfortunately now governed by jokers. Khan is using London because he wants to be the next Labour leader and usher in a hard-left series of policies that undermine British culture, defund the police and encourage drug use. His US tour must be called out. God knows how much it's costing. And remember, we're in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Mr. Khan, get home now. Stop talking to your doped-up mates in California on your pathetic little jolly and start focusing on saving London. To respond now, my superstar panel. The Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Amanda Platel, can you see any reason why Sadiq Khan, who can't even fund the transport network, is using Londoners' money to go off and talk about dope in California?
Well, there's no explanation whatsoever. I mean, I'm a Londoner like you. Not you guys, sort of you guys. Yeah, we're all Londoners. Not that we don't go out a lot in the rest of the country, but... and it's been turned into a cycle lane. I mean, he's used the whole of lockdown, a terrible, hideous lockdown, unnecessary lockdown, to pave over and cement in bollards. You can hardly get around London now. That's what your taxi driver was saying. They do not want cars in London, which means you don't have trade in London, which means the whole network is just grinding to a halt. And I do not understand. Maybe he's taken a bit of the old funny smoke if he's behaving so weirdly.
Well, indeed. I mean, he seems completely cravenly obsessed, Adam, with legalising marijuana. I'm sorry, it makes me think that Mr. Khan just wants to smoke a whole load of weed over in California, because I don't understand. He can't change this law, Adam. That's not under his responsibility as London mayor.
No, so it's all about Sadiq Khan. It's his image. It's what he... Look, if he does this, he's going to be very popular with maybe the young demographic of London. So is
the ones who are being stabbed a lot?
No comment.
In London?
Yeah, no comment on that. You know, crime rates have gone up. I think he's been an awful mayor for London, and I think he's damaged the capital a lot. But this is an ego trip. You know, he's going to go over there. We're going to get loads of US tourists because of the Jubilee in the next coming months and so on. And he's going to take credit for all those US... You know, they love the Queen. They love all things royal. They're going to come over sort of in the next 2 weeks. They're going to come over the summer, and he's going to try and take credit.
Very
as if
good
it's
point.
anything.
As if it's anything. Yeah, that's it.
Amanda, what did you make of him chastising, sort of giving advice to Elon Musk, who, by the way, Elon Musk, if you're going to listen to anyone, don't listen to Sadiq Khan, but saying that Musk has to be really careful about reinstating Trump on Twitter because he's suffered more racial abuse since... he's suffered less racial abuse since Trump left the platform.
This is very unlike me, but I did a few sums today, and old Sadiq said that he'd had 233,000 racist comments since he became mayor 7 years ago. That works out to 40,000 a year, OK? My colleague here, Adam, gets 500,000 abusive messages every year. I mean,
no, 500,000 messages, not abuse. I probably do get quite a lot, but not 500,000.
He's complaining about something which, when you're mayor of one of the once finest...
I'm never going to ask you to do sums again.
That works out.
You stick to English, not mathematics.
That so does.
Actually, James, you think he has a point, though, when it comes to this racial abuse?
I'm sat here very politely. I think you can't argue with racial abuse, with misogyny, with sexism, and...
but can he prove that it's Trump? Can he prove it's connected to Trump?
You're saying that it's normal to get abuse online. I actually, a few years ago, I can't remember why, looked on Sadiq Khan's Twitter. And by the way, as liberal as I am, I don't think he's the greatest mayor. I don't think he's done
a disaster.
Crime. What I will say is he's doing great at trying to highlight and tackle sexual harassment and sexual assault on the London transport.
By banning staring.
Which I think is good. Hey, if you've ever been a victim of that, it can actually be very threatening, and especially when they follow you home. I've been sexually assaulted on the tube. Nothing really happened. So I think, in that respect, he's great. Whether or not he should be going on to the trip, should Rishi Sunak have gone to LA a few weeks ago or months ago, whenever that was? There's lots of very questionable things that politicians do and trips that they go on. Hopefully, it does bring an investment. However, the racial abuse that Sadiq Khan, that I've seen myself, he gets on Twitter, like, no person should get abuse based on their faith or their religion.
No, we all agree on that.
I saw the statistics.
We are as one on that.
And the thing is, what we forget is Donald Trump instigated this war that started in 2016 between Sadiq and Trump. Yes, it's petty, but... we all know that Donald Trump can incite hatred on Twitter. We saw it with the Capitol riots.
Oh,
He knows what to say. He refused to condemn right-wing terrorists in Charlottesville. And what I will say is, when we talk about terrorism, you know, Donald Trump refuses to condemn white supremacists, but when, as women, like, we talk about how, you know, there are more victims of violence against women or murders against women by men than there have been terrorist attacks, but we are not going to call all men terrorists. What Donald Trump was doing, he banned Muslims from 7 countries, and how the original argument started was when Sadiq Khan became mayor, Donald Trump said he would lift it to allow Sadiq Khan to come to America. And
I want to see the evidence. I want to see the evidence that there is any link between the, yes, completely unacceptable racist abuse suffered by Sadiq Khan and Trump being banned.
I know myself, whenever I talk about Donald Trump.
That's where the link doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's appalling to
and we're all
criticise
abused.
anyone.
We're all abused here on Twitter for loads of different
We all
reasons.
get the same thing. But, you know, one would argue that Khan didn't help himself when he tried to ban Donald Trump coming for that state visit.
Of course he did.
In 2018.
Look, Dan,
and he put up that huge balloon, which was both
it was outrageous behaviour towards the leader of the free world.
But Dan, if I was both of those things.
Can I just give you the statistics?
Yes.
So, following Donald Trump's attack on Sadiq Khan in 2016, racist abuse that he received rose by 1,892%, increasing the following year, and it declined 40% in 2020 when Donald Trump was no longer on Twitter. And I think it's because he's not there stirring up the masses.
Final word, Adam.
But if I want to be sceptical, if I'm Sadiq Khan and I want to make the headlines in America and the UK, I mention
You talk about Trump.
Yeah,
exactly. Now, look, fair and balanced on the show. Of course, the spokesperson for the mayor told us today Sadiq Khan is committed to keeping the cost of the visit to a bare minimum and maximising value for money. Flight arrangements, including the mayor's, are part of a broader agreement between the Greater London Authority and United Airlines.
Did you ask about his bulletproof entourage of cars?
I just want to know if he was flying economy.
Well, he could.
Can we find that out?
He could easily fit into an economy seat.
We'll definitely go.
Someone needs to find that out. What class did he travel?
Adam Brooks, Amanda Platel, Ashley James, my first-class superstar panel, and they are here all night. But coming up, will Americans soon be pledging allegiance? Sorry, this is just a funny concept, to President Markle. As Joe Biden's sister gives her approval, would you want to see Meghan in the White House? Stateside superstar journalist Meghan Kelly gives her thoughts at 9:45. But first, should the Queen get to keep the perks of royal life when she's not fulfilling her duties? Daily Mirror Associate Editor Kevin Maguire sparked massive online outrage with that controversial suggestion. He's going to do battle with Conservative commentator and proud royalist Calvin Robinson in The Clash next. I'm really intrigued to know what you think about this one. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. I have to say, quite a lot of you have been messaging me your thoughts on this one over the past 24 hours. You can keep doing so at GB News. We've got a poll running there too. The results and that Royal Rumble in just 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes & Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Megyn Kelly and Nigel Farage coming up. A time now for The Clash. Our beloved Queen was worryingly absent at the state opening of Parliament for the first time in 59 years yesterday, due to what Buckingham Palace claimed was mobility issues. Standing in to deliver the Queen's speech, Prince Charles cast an emotional figure as his mother's unworn crown lay beside him. While most of the nation's heart went out to Her Majesty, the Daily Mirror's associate editor Kevin Maguire made this observation, which sparked massive online controversy and outrage. Kevin tweeted, "Nobody else in Britain would keep huge pay, many free homes and massive support staff if they could no longer do their job. Why should Elizabeth Windsor, 96, be treated differently?" Well, perhaps that's because the Queen has dedicated her entire life to the service of the British people, and as the greatest living Briton, I believe she continues to fulfil her duties. Kevin will be joining me in a moment to argue his case, but the question is, do you agree with him? Should the Queen get to keep the perks of being a royal when she cannot fulfil all of her duties? Let me know your thoughts. Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet me at gbnews. Vote in our poll there too. But taking Kevin Maguire on in this debate is Conservative commentator and a regular fixture on my superstar panel, Calvin Robinson. Kevin Maguire, come on, this was such a cruel dig at our Queen. What were you thinking?
Oh, come on, Dan. You always want to discuss the unthinkable, what other people don't say, but they're thinking themselves. A lot of people will be believing it's somewhat cruel that she is still there at 96. And the fact is, a lot of people have to step down when they can't do their jobs. And you look at the royal families around Europe, there have been abdications in Spain, Holland, Belgium. The Japanese emperor, who's supposed to be descended from a god more than 1,000 years ago, abdicated too. She's going to get older. She's going to get frailer.
But you're suggesting booting her out of Windsor Castle.
Come on, she should be Elizabeth the Last, in my view. We should go to a republic and be democratic about this and decide who our head of state is. But just keeping her there when she can't do the job, getting the sovereign grant, what is that, £83 million basic? Then there's all
she
that money
is doing her job, Kevin. She is still fulfilling her job as monarch. She just can't travel in public.
Wouldn't be tolerated in that way.
Calvin Robinson, I think she is fulfilling her duty.
Of course she is. Her Majesty the Queen said after her 21st birthday that she would dedicate her life to the service of this country, and she has done so for the last 75 years. So I know many Republicans who don't want to see this country remain a constitutional monarchy, but not many of them are as cold and heartless as Kevin Maguire has been in his recent remarks. To suggest that she should be booted out is almost describing the Queen as if she's a benefit scrounger. These are not perks. This is her life. Her life is service and duty to us. And as her subjects, we should be grateful for that, because she is a uniting figure. You know, many countries don't have a constitutional monarchy. Many countries have a dictatorship. Many countries have a democracy that doesn't quite work. You know, countries like America, where the politics gets polarised further left and further right, they don't have an apolitical figure in the centre that holds and binds them all together like we do. You know, we should be thankful that we have a living symbol of our strength, our unity and our patriotism. And to just demolish that and suggest that these are perks and benefits that should be taken away from her just because she's gotten too old now after all of those years of sacrifice and service is outrageous and heartless and cold. And I find it very sad that someone would talk about her in such a detached way like that.
And Kevin, look there, she is working. She is doing her duty.
Oh, come on, Dan. I mean, they've pushed a few people in for a photo call and have it filmed there. Some people are gonna need knee replacements because they're bending their knees so much here. Look, she has a role constitutionally, yes, but she is on welfare street, isn't it? I mean, look, she got the position. She didn't have to apply for it. It was inherited. It'll soon go to Charles. Andrew will still be around. I don't want to abolish the monarchy, I think, until I see if Meghan Markle's the US president, because I think President Markle and First Man Harry visiting King William and Queen Kate could be quite amusing, given that those couples don't get on.
There would be more tension than Biden and Boris over the damn Northern Ireland protocol if that ever happened.
Yeah. I mean, look, you could be at the Tower for laughing at that joke, Dan. You know, you could be judged to be.
You should be in the Tower for that
family.
tweet, Kevin.
But
quite frankly,
but it's a basic,
Calvin says you should be in the Tower for that tweet, Kevin.
If Twitter was around 100 years ago, you would be in the Tower for what you tweeted recently. It's outrageous.
Do you think I should be in the Tower?
Sorry?
Do you think I should be in the Tower?
For a tweet like that, 100 years ago, you would have been.
Now, what about now?
I still think it's quite treacherous to dismissively talk about Her Majesty the Queen in such a way that you want to kick her out and say that she's on welfare street. It's just disrespectful, not just for the Queen, but for all of us, because she unites. She is the embodiment of Britishness.
Look, Kevin, I think it's absolutely correct that we should be able to have a debate about the future of the monarchy. Of course we can. What upset me so much about the tweet is the way that you were degrading the work that the 96-year-old Queen is still putting in. I mean, you saw the last Pope. The moment the going got tough, he stepped down. The Queen is the exact opposite of that, Kevin. Think of what she's gone through over the past year, dealing with the loss of her rock, Prince Philip. And I really feel at this point that we should not be attacking the Queen. I think no matter what your view of whether we should be a republic or not is, we should be coming around and giving this woman love and supporting her through this time because of her incredible service to this country.
Dan, on a human level, of course, my heart goes out over the loss of her husband. And anybody who watched those pictures of her sitting alone in the chapel in Windsor, little did we know.
Where was the humanity in your tweet?
You felt sympathy for her. However, she can't do her job. She didn't go to COP26. She couldn't do that. She didn't go to the Commonwealth Memorial Celebration Service. And she didn't do the Queen's speech. It was a Prince's speech. This is going to carry on. We've got to be brave. We've got to follow the rest of the world.
The royal household. She's still running the royal family. If Prince Charles steps in for her, as he has done over the decades, that is perfectly okay. She is still Her Majesty the Queen. She's still the crown, embodiment of the crown. She's still the sovereign, and she's still the figure that unites our country. I don't understand this idea that she's not clocked in, therefore she should be deducted wages. It's not a job, it's a vocation. It's a service, it's an obligation, it's a duty. These things are values that the British people used to understand. It seems to me that you've lost all meaning of them.
She gets a huge amount of money, has incredible privileges.
Is this envy of the left?
Very, nobody would be allowed in public.
Would you want her job, Kevin?
Company doing that.
There's a reason that Meghan Markle does not live in the UK. There's a reason Meghan Markle does not do the whole royal thing. It's a chore, it's a grind, it's sacrificial, and it's hard work. It isn't just a case of waving your hand every now and then.
I mean, don't make it sound like working on a building site or cleaning hospital floors. Or
Kevin, how many people do you know who is still working at 96 years old? And I think what's particularly sad is that you're suggesting the only way that we can assume the Queen is still at work is if she's wheeled out on public display. She has made it perfectly clear that she doesn't want to be seen in a wheelchair, Kevin, because she felt that that demeaned the status in public of her sister, Princess Margaret. And I think after 7 decades of impeccable service, Kevin, we owe her enough to respect that decision.
I think after 7 decades, it's time to say thank you and goodbye. Thank you for your service, but it's now time to make way for somebody else.
No, we want her to stay for as long as possible.
Because one of the roles of the monarchy is to be seen and perform official duties. And she can't.
Not at all. It's a very modern context. It's a very modern idea of what the monarchy is. Before television, the monarchy was not seen all about and about everywhere. They still had a role in the country, in the life of the country. I don't think it should be a case of if we haven't seen her in a week, we should sack her off. She has served us for decades. Surely we owe her the repayment of that. We should be looking after her just as she's looked after us. She served in World War II. She served in many, many patronages and many, many charities over the years. She's helped not just British people, but the Commonwealth of nations around the world. Do we not owe her?
Look, you're drowning in deference. Served in World War II. She wasn't on the Arctic convoys. She wasn't at D-Day. She wasn't flying a Spitfire in the Battle of Britain. Come on. I mean, get a grip, man. Get a grip of yourself.
Get a grip of yourself. You sat on national TV disrespecting a 96-year-old who's spent her entire life serving this country. What have you done to serve this country?
Every day, I do my duty by talking to people like you and pointing out the errors of your way.
Sometimes
the
I wish you
alternative voice. I'm the voice of common sense and reason.
You're
Don't
the voice
bend
of common
knee
sense.
and
You are the
promote
voice of
her in a way.
Now I know you're
Served in the
trolling.
Second
Now I
World
know you're on here
War.
just to take the
I
mick.
mean, no, come on.
Kevin, she served in the Territorial Army, and do not do down that duty, because my grandma served in exactly the same force that she did, and as young teenage women in the 1940s, to go and be prepared to serve in the army to back up your country was a massive deal, and to do so as a princess was even bigger. So do not do down what she did during World War II, because it was utterly incredible. And the country has so much respect for what she did during World War II. She could have cowered away in her castle, and she didn't.
Many people in the Second World War on the home front performed heroic tasks, but to build up the Queen as somehow exceptional and very different is wrong. Where you build a royal myth, you try and create...
I have respect for anyone who served in World War II.
Beings. They are not. Look,
I have respect for any veteran of World War II, but the Queen didn't need to serve. That's the point that I'm making, and she did. And you shouldn't do down her service in World War II.
If we're going to do service, then start respecting Prince Harry, who served in war zones twice. You don't, do you?
I do respect him for that.
Absolutely. In fact, what we don't respect about him is the way he disregarded the service and disregarded his colleagues and peers that he'd spent a long time serving with after he ditched the country.
I mean, Kevin, Prince Harry, it's perfect that you've brought him up. It's perfect you've brought him up, Kevin, because he cut and run when the going got tough, and the Queen never did that for 7 decades. And she saved the monarchy.
She is the Queen.
She saved the monarchy.
If you had Buckingham Palace, Windsor Castle, Sandringham, Balmoral, you probably wouldn't leave either, would you? William probably
her uncle did.
He'll inherit it after Charles.
Uncle did.
Harry's fate was to be the spare.
Well, no, the Queen's uncle abdicated and put the monarchy in its gravest crisis, fighting for survival. And guess who the one person was who saved the monarchy, probably for the next 100 years? The Queen. And let's be honest, Kevin, that's why you hate her, isn't it? That's why you hate her, because you know that she has basically destroyed your Republican cause.
It says a lot, actually, that Edward VIII had to abdicate because of his love for an American divorcee rather than his fascistic views and weird liking of Hitler. But she won't have preserved the monarchy for 100 years. You know it'll be totally different when Charles comes along and William comes along.
Yeah, and that's why you want to make it happen quicker. And as I've been saying for a long time, Kevin, I believe the Queen will reign for at least another decade. She's healthy, she's strong.
And I wish, Dan, I wish I could health and a long life.
Okay, good.
That's not the problem.
Let's leave it there then. Let's leave it there. That was the Daily Mirror's Associate Editor, Kevin Maguire. Very much appreciate it, Kevin, and the Conservative commentator, Calvin Robinson. So who do you agree with? Well, one busy lady on Twitter says, what perks? She has devoted her life to serve our country. I can't see any perks on that. From Snoffer, she's done her bit for decades. Most 96-year-olds would have already had 30 years of retirement behind them. Leave her alone. An old cynic on Twitter says, my father devoted his life to service to our country. He died penniless, just made the unpardonable mistake of being born into the wrong family, I guess. And your verdict is now in. 90% of you agree that the Queen should keep the perks of being a royal, while 10% of you are with Kevin Maguire. Coming up, should Boris scrap the Northern Ireland Protocol and take on the EU? Nigel Farage says absolutely he leads the charge in What the Farage soon. But first, could the endorsement of Joe Biden's sister be the starting gun for Meghan Markle's presidential campaign? Stateside superstar journalist Megyn Kelly gives her thoughts right after the break.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle, and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Nigel Farage and Rod Liddell still to come, but first it's Megyn Kelly time. I usually struggle to think of anyone who could do a worse job at being US president than sleepy Joe Biden, but could he soon have a royal rival? Biden's sister and major Democratic figure Valerie Biden Owens had this to say about the prospect of Meghan Markle running for president in an interview with Good Morning Britain.
It's wonderful to have women in politics. More women, the more women we have, the better our democratic system will work, a better point of view, a different point of view. And we embrace all women, and we welcome her to come in and join the Democratic Party.
So you think she'll make a good potential candidate one day, maybe for president?
Yes, perhaps. Of course she will.
And those comments are being taken seriously. In a new Spectator column headline, Meghan Markle's presidential run appears inevitable. Alexander Lahman argues the appeal of a celebrity candidate for the Democrats will be strong. Well, Megyn Kelly, as you know, I covered Harry and Meghan throughout their entire time in the royal family. And someone very close to them over that time told me that Meghan's ultimate aim was always to run for the American presidency. But would the Democrats really be stupid enough to let that happen?
You know what? The party elders might be. I still believe the Democratic Party would shut that down before it actually happened. And I certainly believe the country would shut it down before ever letting her within 16 feet of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, to me, it's incredible because, first of all, I'm sure they like her at the top of the Democratic Party because she's a woman. She's a woman of color. She's a star. She's married to a royal. She's woke. She likes to lecture people on woke leftist identity politics. You're in. Done. Great. Go for it, right? The Democratic Party, as writ large, is not quite as woke and leftist as the people who run it appear to be. So let's hope that there'd be some brakes pumped. But the fact that these reports say she's unconfirmed reports that she's been meeting with top Democrats, spending time with top Democrats, I'm like, I can confirm them. I see her with Oprah. I see her with Gayle. I see her with George Clooney, her alleged new friends who aren't really friends at all. These just celebrities she stalked her wedding with because she wanted to rub elbows with them. Those are all the top Democrats in this country. And I'm sure she is rubbing elbows, and I'm sure she'd love to be president one day because she appears to love the spotlight, although she doesn't like to admit it. But what this shows me, the fact that she might even be considering it or might have her eye on that long term, because Joe Biden's sister's talking about 2028. They're suggesting 20 in that American Spectator piece, is that she's a dishonest, narcissistic opportunist, Dan. I mean, this is Miss I Want Privacy wants to run for president. Miss the royal family was a racist prison, now wants to come out and she wants to be on cam at the Queen's Jubilee, right? And she wants more, she wants to use her royal title. And Miss I Want Privacy for my children, she's showing up at the Jubilee with her children who are going to be on cam, and she wants to rub elbows with all of the first tier royals and, possibly be on camera, if possible, not on the balcony, I guess, maybe not, maybe she can work her way into it and so on. Like what she says to us publicly is not how she really feels. What she wants is a spotlight. She's the same girl she was when she was backup girl number 4 for Howie Mandel, where she showed us she can open suitcases very well. But has she ever opened a campaign? Has she ever opened an office? Has she ever signed the front of a paycheck instead of the back of one? Has she employed any sort of a staff? Yes, she's a star. Yes, Trump was a star. That's not enough. That doesn't make you a president. Trump ran a business worth hundreds of millions, maybe $1 billion. We'll see. He says so. It's been questioned, but a very successful real estate business for decades, knew how to negotiate deals, was a real estate mogul, and so on. She knows how to open the suitcase and how to look pretty in front of the camera, Dan. That's about it.
Indeed. Now, Meghan, I was actually having lunch today with someone who's a friend of mine who's from New York and mixes in these very liberal New York circles. And his take on this was fascinating, Meghan, because he said all of his liberal New Yorker friends have now turned on Meghan Markle too. So obviously Brits for some time have seen through her, but do you think Americans are starting to change their opinion?
I think eventually they catch on. I mean, I think Americans can smell a phony, and it took us a while because she came out and charmed everyone here and there, as you know, and people believed this whole sweet, demure act that she put on in the beginning. But look, once she went out, and I really think this was her greatest sin, I even greater than calling the royal family racist while the Queen's husband was ailing and so on. Her greatest sin was in the midst of a pandemic with hundreds of thousands of people dying in our country and yours. She actually asked us to give a damn about what title her kid was getting. No one cared. No one cares now. Miss, I grew up going to the Sizzlers and getting the $5 special, wants us to believe she's a woman of the people. Meanwhile, we see her parading in the high fashion outfits at the Invictus Games and lamenting that her son doesn't have the proper title of prince and acting like a victim and crying in her soup and comparing herself to the stupid Ariel from The Little Mermaid because she lost her voice. Meanwhile, it's like you have the biggest microphone in the world. Any journalist on either continent would speak to you. And I do think eventually Americans catch on. I think we're there.
That is good to hear. That is good to hear. So, Meghan, you're not predicting a President Markle. You don't think it will happen?
If she runs, she will not be the only Meghan running because I will personally take her on just so there is somebody who has 2 nickels to rub together on the ticket someplace.
The most sane Meghan in America. That is Megyn Kelly, star US journalist, host of the Megyn Kelly Show, which you can find on Sirius XM and YouTube, plus as a very good podcast too. Coming up, as the policing minister speaks out on his Beargate ploy, is Keir Starmer trying to make himself a political martyr? My superstar panel weigh in on that question as the Media Buzz returns after 10. But first, should Boris stand up to the European Union and just scrap the Northern Ireland Protocol? Well, Nigel Farage thinks so. He'll explain why we shouldn't be afraid of a trade war with the bloc. That's in What the Farage in just 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. A first look at tomorrow's front page is coming up. But first, what the Farage with the country's most famous Nigel. Now, a showdown with the European Union is finally looming over the highly contentious Northern Ireland Protocol, with Stormont at a bitter standstill over the deal, which was struck during the Brexit divorce and sees checks on goods entering Northern Ireland. The UK government is reportedly planning on tearing up parts of the problematic arrangement within days. But Brussels has furiously warned us not to touch it in any way, or it could retaliate by cancelling the entire Brexit deal and starting a trade war. At a press conference in Sweden today, Boris faced questions over whether now was the right time to pick a fight with the EU against the backdrop of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Watch.
The most important agreement is the 25-year-old Belfast Good Friday Agreement. That is crucial for the stability of our country, of the UK and Northern Ireland, and that means that things have got to command cross-community support. Plainly, the Northern Ireland Protocol fails to do that. We need to sort it out.
So Nigel Farage, in that case, surely it just has to go.
It does. And I mean, let's be honest, this is a problem of Boris Johnson's own making. There were some of us, Dan, in 2019 saying this is not a good deal, that effectively will annex a part of the United Kingdom, which is what we've done, and the European Union weaponised Northern Ireland from day one of the negotiations. Now, I had Lord Frost on my programme the other evening.
Yeah, great interview.
Yeah, but he basically said, look, we were at total impasse, we had to do something, we took the decision with Northern Ireland, we'd sort the mess out later. All right, fine. We did end the impasse, thank goodness, the years of agony that we were going through as a country. But now is the time to do something. There is a border in the Irish Sea. A part of the UK has been cut off from the rest of us. And this is the crucial point. It actually contradicts the Good Friday Agreement, which is based, as Johnson just said in that clip, on consent, on cross-community support. It doesn't do that. Not only is it making trade impossible with Northern Ireland, not only has it cut them off from the rest of the UK, but it actually genuinely risks the troubles coming back. We can't do that. We can't cope with that. So something has to be done. And I think this government has spent too much time promising to do things, threatening to do things. Now is the time for action. And I think at last they know it. What's the risk? The risk is a trade war with the EU, but then anyway, the free trade deal's rubbish. I mean, you try and import a case of wine from Italy, you'll find all sorts of charges and delays. It's not a very good trade deal. And if the whole of the agreement was scrapped, well, do you know what we'd do? We'd take back our territorial fishing waters. That's a good start. We'd cease any future payments, and we still are on the hook for billions, unbelievably, over the course of the next few years. But the real question is this. Do Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, or BMW, wish to continue selling their cars in the United Kingdom? Now, by the way, they don't call us United Kingdom. They call us Treasure Island, because that's how much more they sell to us than we sell to them. Dan, they can huff and they can puff all they like. They may well put barriers and problems in our place in the short term, but ultimately, money, like water, finds the right level. Now, and is now the time to strike with what's happening in Ukraine was one of the questions that you posed before introducing me. Actually, what better time could there be? They are so divided over Ukraine and their response to it. I don't think you'd get a unified EU approach to us saying this protocol is a bad deal. It was negotiated. You've acted in bad faith. And after all, don't forget, it was Ursula von der Leyen. She was the one triggering Article 16 to try and stop us having vaccines. So there's nothing to fear in this whatsoever. I would just love to see the government do this. There's much of Brexit not yet completed. And once we've done this, let's leave the ECHR. Let's completely scrap the Human Rights Act. Let's get back to the principles we've understood ever since 1215 with Magna Carta of liberty, freedom of the individual under the rule of law. We don't need state-given rights by some mob in Strasbourg, most of whom haven't even been legally trained. And then we can get back control of our borders too. So there is unfinished business. And if this government wants to get back on track and actually wants to win the next election, because on current course, they'll lose. I've no doubt about that. Those results last Thursday were a lot worse than anybody in the Conservative Party dares to mention. They were lucky that Beergate kind of, took the headlines away. They want to win the next election, complete Brexit, do it properly, and that means honouring, Boris Johnson, your promises to the people of Northern Ireland, which are wearing a bit thin.
Nigel, what do you make of this warning from the Biden White House today, though?
Look, the truth of it is that we have a very anti-British American president. He doesn't like us one little bit.
And he's pro-Irish, we know that.
Yeah, that famous interview with the BBC, I'm Irish, There is no prospect of a trade deal with America with Biden in the White House. It ain't going to happen. So, the fact that Biden won't like us doing it, so what?
So you say just ignore it. They're just going to have to ignore it because there's a cabinet split over this, isn't there, Nigel?
Well, of course there is. I mean, look, we all know the Conservative Party never believed in Brexit. They were dragged kicking and screaming into having to adopt Brexit. Otherwise, there was going to be an insurgent takeover of the United Kingdom and Nigel Farage walking into number 10. I mean, that would never do. I mean, that was what they faced. That was literally what they faced. I remember in June and July of 19, the Brexit Party was topping the polls for the next general election. So they were drag kicking and screaming into it. And, a lot of them find this still very, very difficult. You've got the Hawks, you've got the Doves, and then you've got Michael Gove. I'm not quite sure what he's on, but he needs to give it a rest after that performance.
But that's what I was going to say, Nigel. It's interesting because you've got Liz Truss, who obviously voted Remain, very much in favour of scrapping the Northern Ireland Protocol, really arguing for it behind the scenes in Cabinet. And it's Gove who's saying no.
Yeah, well, Liz Truss fancies herself as the next leader, doesn't she?
Yes, she does.
I mean, it's very simple. Whether she believes in this or not, I've absolutely no idea whatsoever. And as I say, I'm not sure, after Michael Gove's performance on BBC Breakfast this morning, whether he knows quite what planet he's on these days. Yeah, it is all over the place. But then, in a way, that characterises this government. I mean, they are rudderless. I honestly, Dan, I don't know what they stand for on any single issue, but they could regain public trust by holding faith with the concept of the United Kingdom, by getting us out of ECHR, by getting back proper border controls, by ending the cross-channel migrant crisis. You know what? If they did those things, they'd soon find their popularity improving.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think they're starting to, and I think they do need to scrap the protocol. But Nigel, fascinating stuff. By the way, I watched your What the Farage earlier about Michael Gove, and it was very funny. We will be playing that clip in the next hour. So if you don't know what Nigel's talking about, if you missed his show earlier, do stand by, because it was a bit of a bizarre performance from Gove earlier, wasn't it, Nigel? To say the least. Nigel, thank you so much. And of course, Nigel's show will be repeated midnight here on GB News, and he's back 7 o'clock too tomorrow night. Nigel, thank you so much. It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as Police Minister Kit Malthouse appears to publicly question the true intention of Starmer's resignation pledge.
Whether he's attempting to turn what is obviously a slightly mysterious situation into a sort of political one. We have to leave space and time for Durham Police to do their job.
Is the Labour leader exerting undue influence over the Durham Police investigation? I'll debate that next with my superstar panel. Daily Mail star columnist Amanda Patel, entrepreneur and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster Ashley James. He's become one of the most high-profile victims of cancel culture, despite being a Premier League legend and leading the charge for more investigation into potential vaccine damage suffered by athletes. Well, former England footballer Matt Le Tissier, he's not silenced on this so he's going to be joining me live at 10:20 to talk about being deplatformed by the sport that he loves. As the BBC spends an outrageous £50 million on research into what viewers are watching, surely something they should already know, Rod Liddle is here to offer them a few home truths free of charge. He's uncancelled at 10:40. After hotels in Malaga, snobby hotels plan to tackle British hen and stag do parties by fitting noise monitors into rooms. Do Brits abroad really give our country a bad name, or do these Spaniards need to get over it? And with the final just days away, can you spot why Serbia's Eurovision entry has caused a royal kerfuffle? I spotted it. All will be revealed in our Media Buzz at 10:30. Plus, we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages next. And throughout the hour too, and as ever, brand new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass will be revealed before the night is out, so don't go anywhere. But first, the news with Miranda Shunker.
Thank you. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has signed historic security agreements with Finland and Sweden, vowing the countries will assist each other against any military attack. The declarations will intensify intelligence sharing, joint military training and bolster security. Finland and Sweden are considering joining NATO following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. That's despite threats from the Russian president. While speaking at a joint news conference in Finland, Boris Johnson said the war has changed the equation of European security.
We've seen the end of the post-Cold War period, and the invasion of Ukraine, sadly, has opened a new chapter. And it would be fair to say that it has also brought Finland and the UK even closer together today. So the security declaration, the solemn declaration we've signed today, ensures that our two nations can intensify our partnership and take it to unparalleled heights.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the war with Russia would have been prevented if his country had been a member of NATO. He believes President Putin was motivated by the risk of seeing Ukraine join the military alliance.
Sadly, unfortunately, NATO have not found a place for Ukraine within the alliance before the war. I'm absolutely convinced, and I have said it before, that if Ukraine had been part of NATO before the war, there would have been no war. I believe in this.
Well, Ukraine says negotiations are underway to swap Russian prisoners of war for badly injured defenders sheltering in the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. Newly released footage shows smoke rising above the plant as shelling continues. Ukrainian forces continue their counter-offensive in the Kharkiv region. This video appearing to show a Russian tank being destroyed. UK military intelligence says Ukraine has successfully struck Russian air defences and supply lines with drones. Defence Secretary Ben Wallace is meeting with his US counterpart at the Pentagon to discuss Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. It comes as the US said the invasion has entered a new phase, which is no less dangerous. US Defence Secretary Lloyd Austin told Ben Wallace few countries have stepped up with security assistance to Ukraine in the way the UK has. Ben Wallace praised the US for the training, support and military aid that it's provided to Ukraine since 2015. And the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall have hosted the first royal garden party at Buckingham Palace since 2019. The Queen was not in attendance due to her ongoing mobility issues, but Charles and Camilla spoke to a selection of the 8,000 guests in attendance. Garden parties have not been held at the palace for 3 years due to the pandemic. Well, on TV, online and DAB plus radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Time for tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. Just one front page in so far, the Metro, which covers the controversial claims from Tory MP Lee Anderson, who said today there was, quote, little use for food banks if people know how to cook and budget. The paper also carries a picture of Colleen Rooney, who appeared at the High Court today for the resumption of her Wagatha Christie libel trial with Rebecca Vardy. That might feature, I think, later in the show in our Union Jackass Greatest Britain segment. But my superstar panel back with me now, the Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Platel, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Keir Starmer's been squirming over his Beergate antics, but things have now got even more uncomfortable for the Labour leader. In a bombshell new development, Police Minister Kit Malthouse broke his silence on the scandal to give one of the most damning statements from within Westminster yet, appearing to suggest that Cormac Keir is turning the Durham police probe political.
Starmer has been offering lots and lots of advice to other MPs. I've never been particularly censorious about how MPs conduct themselves. It's up to him what he does.
Well, he would argue that it is a case of having moral authority, and he wants to make the contrast with Boris Johnson, who decided not to resign. And if Boris Johnson faces more fines, if he gets fined again by the police, do you think he should consider resigning in those circumstances?
No, and I don't know what Keir Starmer is attempting to do, whether he's attempting to turn what is obviously a slightly mysterious situation into a sort of political one. I don't know. In the end, we have to leave space and time for Durham police to do their job.
So that was a significant intervention from the policing minister, who also put on record that Boris Johnson was not obliged to resign if Starmer falls on his sword over a prospective fine. In further proof, Keir is playing games with Durham Constabulary. Labour sources have told the Daily Telegraph that Starmer will only quit if he is specifically issued with a fixed penalty notice and not if he is simply found to have broken the rules. Starmer, whose antics have contributed to Labour falling to their lowest popularity for 5 months, according to YouGov, is all too aware that Durham police have a policy not to issue retrospective COVID fines. So, despite claiming he believes in, quote, the principle that those who make the laws must follow them, it seems Slippery Starmer has already carefully plotted his way out of this tricky Beergate conundrum. Amanda Platel.
It's a naked political ploy. He's trying to, what we've now got, the Cummings defence, because Dominic Cummings was not given a fine, but he was warned that he'd broken the rules. So Keir Starmer is saying, well, if I don't get a fine, I'll only resign if I get a fine, but if I just get the Cummings warning, then I stay on as leader of the Labour Party. It's just all a con. And what is so disgusting about this is the way that he's basically boxed the Durham police force. And do you mind if I check my notes here, Dan?
No, please.
I want to make sure I get it right.
Please.
So the Durham Police and Crime Commissioner is best friends with Mary Foy, who's the MP, not to be confused with Claire Foy, the gorgeous one from The Crown. Mary's the old bag. She's the... I did not say that. That was a joke.
I hope you're not insinuating.
She was the old bag carrier. She was carrying the korma bags. That's all I was saying.
Are you insinuating that they wouldn't do their job?
That is... No, I'm just saying. So she's besties with this elected, just as it happens, Labour Chief of Police. The whole thing stinks.
Adam Brooks?
Look, Labour are the kings of political games, and he's tried to checkmate Boris, you know, with these moves, and I think it makes him look really, really distrustful.
Do you think he's pressuring the police?
Yeah, I do.
Inappropriately.
Of course I do. Yeah.
Of course he is.
And, you know, the whole thing stinks, and I'll stick by it. I don't want Keir Starmer to resign. I don't want Boris to resign. I want Boris to get on and help the cost of living crisis. I want Keir Starmer to do his job as the opposition party for once, because he hasn't been about in 2 years.
Can I just ask you, I've been dying to ask you this.
Yep.
Has Beergate increased the sale of beer sales in your pubs?
No.
So he can't win, can he?
Ashley James, surely this is completely outrageous that Keir Starmer is putting this pressure on the police, not allowing the police force to do their job and to investigate. Because whatever you think about Boris Johnson and Partygate, he made it very clear that he was going to wait for the police investigation to conclude so that he could not be accused of interfering with it.
No, I think Boris Johnson said he would wait for the report because he didn't want to out himself. I mean, what is it, over 300 photos exist of the 17 parties that the Conservatives had. And by the way, we were obeying their laws, the Conservatives' laws that they set. I followed
Which Keir Starmer voted for, though.
Yes.
But they
Yep.
put them in place, and as someone who followed all the rules and who lost their DJ career, I know you were affected as well. I feel really strongly about this. I feel angry that Labour lied about Beergate, but let's not forget, Keir Starmer is a former DPP. He's a man of honesty and integrity. When you compare him to Boris Johnson, who has been
But is he,
fired...
though? I know he presents that image, Ashley, but he's lied over Beergate. So I no longer believe he's an honourable politician. He said Angela Rayner wasn't there. He said all of the restaurants were closed in Durham. He said he couldn't get food at his hotel. Well, there's 3 lies. What's honourable about that?
Well, also,
what's honourable about that?
We also did see...
What's honourable about the fact, by the way, that he didn't prosecute Jimmy Savile, but he did choose to launch a witch hunt against a load of journalists doing their jobs? I just hate all of this narrative that Keir Starmer is Mr Honourable just because he happened to be the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Let's not forget that if you are found guilty of a crime whilst in office, you should resign as per the ministerial code.
Speeding ticket, you don't have to, though.
We have become so used...
Just a fixed penalty notice.
We have become so used to politicians breaking the law, breaking the rules that they set us, that now when a man does the honourable thing, because of course he should resign if he's found to be proven guilty. It's in the ministerial code that you should resign if you're breaking the law.
But he shouldn't be bulldozing the Durham police.
I don't think he is. He's just saying he's doing the honourable thing. Like, if he is found guilty, he will resign, because how can you be a leader if you're breaking rules?
But do you understand the point, though, that by saying that, he has, whether he meant to or not, I believe he meant to, you think he didn't, but he has put undue political pressure on the Durham police just by saying that?
I don't believe it, because, like...
But they now know that their investigation, the results of their investigation determine whether the Leader of the Opposition remains in place.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be swayed. It's like, if I break the law, and if I'm found to break the law, it doesn't matter whether I said I will quit my job.
But do you really believe the police aren't politically influenced?
Well, I mean, we know how corrupt the whole system is. I mean, you only have to look at all the PPE contracts that are being investigated at the moment. I think we're all sick of corruption on any side. We're sick of being lied to, and especially, I know it's really easy to trivialise lockdown rules being broken because now we're out of it. It seems so trivial, but at the time it was not trivial. We were saying like £10,000 fines. My son didn't meet any of my family and friends for 3 months.
Which is despicable.
But it's also interesting that Keir Starmer's predecessor as the Director of Public Prosecutions, he said that he is bulldozing the Durham police.
I also think we just
and he, you know, they're both men in the same job, and he's come out publicly and said he's placed them in the most invidious position.
And that was Lord MacDonald.
But again, can we just reiterate, I'm pleased this has happened because it means it's very unlikely they're ever going to try and do this again. So
they must never lock us down.
Hurrah for that.
The rules were asked. What's going to happen to your child's generation as a result of all of that misdevelopment? We still don't know the consequences.
I just want integrity in politics, and especially now with the world of social media. It's so...
We all like that.
You're never going to get that.
We all like that. But Dan, did you see as well,
that.
Steve Baker tweeted that the rules were wrong.
The rules were wrong.
So it's good that some MPs have got brave enough to say that on social media.
Which Dan has been saying for a very long time.
Yes, I think that's been my point. My point is that the rules were an ass. They should never have been in place. They should not have existed. But Keir Starmer, and the reason why this is a scandal is that he now has to live up to the standards that he set for Boris Johnson.
And he wanted more. He wanted more.
Well, he didn't only want more, he also called on Boris Johnson to resign simply for being investigated by the police. And that is a fact.
For 17 different instances with his wife and son and interior designer.
That doesn't undo the hypocrisy here.
No, this is about hypocrisy.
Yeah.
But this morning started like any morning after a Queen's speech with a sacrificial government minister wailed out to defend the new agenda of the government. Veteran cabinet member Michael Gove seemed like a safe pair of hands, but I don't think anyone was quite expecting him to show off such oratory flair with an animated performance on BBC Breakfast that got the whole internet talking.
But that doesn't amount to an emergency budget, which is what some people immediately thought that it did. It is an example of some commentators chasing their own tails and trying to take a statement that is commonsensical, turning it into a major capital letters, a big news story, and in fact, when the Treasury quite rightly say, calm down, then people, instead of recognising that they've overinflated the story in the first place, then say, oh, this is clearly a split.
Now, we love a quirky character in Westminster, don't we? And as far as I'm concerned, he's maybe wasted in politics. Fun fact for you, Gove, he's a former thespian who once starred alongside the late, great Christopher Lee in a feast... No, look at those facials.
I didn't know that.
Of course, serious socialists like Carl Turner MP and Angela Rayner couldn't take a joke. They immediately hit Twitter to slate Gove for not taking the cost of living crisis seriously. Bit rich, considering they spent months talking about Partygate instead, only caring about the crisis once their own leader got into issues. Politics, eh?
Beats his dancing, Dan.
That's true, but there's no integrity there, Ashley. I'm sorry, you're going to be waiting a long time for that. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Amanda Patel, my superstar panel. Do stand by, because coming up, should Brits abroad be cancelled in a Spanish crackdown on so-called drunken tourism? My panel will return to debate that next. But first, a Premier League legend leading the charge for more investigation into potential vaccine damage suffered by athletes. Former England footballer Matt Le Tissier joins me straight after the break to talk about how cancel culture has now come for him. You don't want to miss this.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel, and we're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. We're back, and he became one of the most high-profile victims of cancel culture after raising concerns about vaccine damage, especially amongst sports people, fears that continue to be derided by the establishment despite the recent revelation that over 1,200 claims have been made to the vaccine damages payment scheme. As a result of that and other controversial comments, mostly centred on the coronavirus pandemic, Matt Letizia has been repeatedly deplatformed by the sporting world. In the space of a month, he was forced to step down from his role as an ambassador for Southampton FC and axed from speaking at an event with the Jersey Bulls Football Club. Well, he may have been silenced by the sport he loves, but he won't be here on Dan Wootton tonight. And it is a pleasure to say Matt Letizia joins me now. Matt, it's just so depressing, isn't it, that in the sporting world, they can't accept people who harbour different views. I mean, Matt, I agree with you on lots of things. There are certain things we don't agree with, but I absolutely think you deserve a platform to speak out. And I don't understand what's happened to football to try and shut you down.
Yeah, I don't think it's just football. I've got to correct you on one thing there, though, Dan. The decision to resign my place as an ambassador at Southampton Football Club was a decision that I took. So I made that decision.
And was that because you saw the pressure that was coming on the club?
Yeah, so Southampton never forced me to resign. They were getting a lot of complaints from people about, the fact that I wasn't ambassador for the club and I shouldn't be. And I didn't want the club to be in that position, quite frankly. So I decided to do what I thought was the right thing to protect Southampton Football Club. And I resigned my position. It was as simple as that. So the Jersey Bulls situation was obviously something very different, where I'd been booked to be their after-dinner speaker at their end-of-season awards night. And as you can see there, that was me. And then ITV Jersey decided to get involved in the situation where they contacted Jersey Bulls and told them that they would be reporting on the event. And because there was a controversial speaker at the event, that they would be covering the event and putting it in a bad light. And obviously Jersey Bulls didn't want that kind of negative publicity. So they caved into the pressure that ITV Jersey had put on them. And they decided to terminate my appearance there. And that was the situation. And so I was a little bit surprised when they then put out a statement saying it was mutually agreed. Well, it was mutually agreed because I didn't really have much choice in the matter. They decided that I wasn't going to be there, so I couldn't really do a lot about it. But I'm not one to kick up a fuss. I understood the position that ITV Jersey had put them in, and it was a pretty disgusting thing to do, I thought, of ITV Jersey. And not only that, they then decided to put out a tweet on their Twitter page saying that I'd been cancelled as the speaker because of a fan backlash, when indeed it was nothing to do with a fan backlash. It was all to do with they themselves putting pressure on the club. And I thought it was a pretty despicable way of behaving, quite frankly.
Well, it is. And Matt, there is a real irony, isn't there? Because when it comes to what some would say, although I don't personally really view these as left-right issues anymore, by the way, but if you look at someone on the other end of the political spectrum, I guess you could say, another British footballing legend, Gary Lineker, he spouts off constantly about very contentious and very sensitive political issues. I don't agree with virtually anything he says, but I absolutely respect his right to have those views, and no one's cancelling him, Matt. But he has come for you as well online.
Yeah, he has, and you're right. You know, he's posted a lot of stuff on Twitter. I've followed Gary for a long time on social media, and he posts a lot of things that I don't agree with. But there hasn't been one thing where I've disagreed with him on something, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to really attack him for that because he's got a different opinion to me. That's not how things should work. I think you're absolutely right. We're never all going to agree on everything the whole time.
No, and we shouldn't. We shouldn't either.
We should all be free to have our own opinions, and that's the way that life should be. If we were all going to have the same thoughts the whole time, the world's going to be a pretty boring place, and it's not really a place that I care to live in. I think that one of my biggest concerns over this last couple of years has been the lack of debate in public, on the television, on social media, the lack of debate that's been allowed, and we're only given one side of the story the whole time. And I'm sorry, but that's not how we progress as a society.
Well, indeed, and I read again, Matt, the Times interview with you today, which caused a lot of the recent consternation. And the problem with the article was just the snaring tone throughout. And I think it summed up the attitude of most of the media over the past 2.5 years, which is that if you question any part of the official narrative, you're somehow insane. And that is a concern because there's been a lot of things that the government got wrong. And that the media then in turn got wrong because they were parroting government talking points.
Well, I mean, when they were being funded to the tunes of hundreds of £1 million by the government, it's no surprise that they went along with their lines of propaganda. So that has been a huge concern for me over the last couple of years. I've decided to stick my head above the parapet and say what I thought. Because I thought it was the right thing to do. I always felt like very early on, common sense told you that lockdowns in the long term were going to be far more harmful for society than not having them. And so it was always a little bit frustrating for me. And I voiced my opinion. I got shouted down. I got a lot of abuse on social media. But I don't really bow down to bullies in my life, and they can criticise me all they want. They can have as many goes in the media at me as they want, but I'm afraid the truth will out, and I will stick to my guns, and I will stand up for what I believe in. And sometimes I might be standing up for something that I believe in that might turn out to be wrong. And you know what? If that does happen, I'll be the first person to hold my hand up and go, really sorry about that. I've got that one wrong. I'm gonna change my opinion on that, and I'm not big enough not to do that. I don't see that coming from the other side of the media.
No, and on that note, Matt, it seems that much of the negativity towards you has been because of your, let's say, inquiring mind when it comes to the COVID vaccines. We obviously had you on the programme many months ago to talk about your specific concerns regarding potential vaccine damage in sports people. This is an area that the rest of the media simply does not want to touch. And last night on my show, we spoke to a great man called Alex, who is in Scotland and was living a completely normal life as a very healthy 57-year-old until he had the AstraZeneca jab, and 12 days later, as a direct result, had his left leg amputated. Now, he's had virtually no mainstream media coverage. He's still not received any compensation from the government either. It's right to at least have this conversation, isn't it, without being accused of being some sort of anti-vaxxer?
That's a word that's been thrown at me as well over the last few months. And I think you're absolutely right. You have to have balance. And if you're going to spend months and months and millions of pounds promoting the vaccines, then I think you have to be fair. And I think you have to make sure that everybody knows that there are potential side effects to these vaccines. I think everybody should absolutely have informed consent when they take these vaccines. And if you're not telling people what the dangers are, and there are people who are proving, there's been people who have passed away as a direct result of the vaccine. But nobody will talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about that. And I think that's wrong. I think you have to be given all the information, and then you have to be able to decide for yourself. You have to personally say, well, what's the risks? What's the benefits? Is that going to be the right thing for me to do? And it's as simple as that. It's crazy I mean, I've had every vaccine I could possibly have had in my life up, and all of a sudden, because I decided to wait for a little bit more long-term safety data on this one, people shout anti-vaxxer at you, and it's just crazy. But the weird thing is, Dan, is that, in real life, with all the people that I meet in real life, and I get around quite a bit, I go and do my after-dinner speeches around the country. I play in lots of charity golf days. I meet lots of different people. And people in real life are actually really lovely and very supportive. And a lot of them will say to me, do you know what, thank you very much for speaking up for us, because nobody's really given the people that think like us a voice. And honestly, I've barely had anybody come up to me face to face in real life and start having a go at me for my views. And, most people actually are very tolerant of people's different views, and they feel like freedom of speech is an important thing. And that's exactly how I feel. So it's nice that in real life, I have a great life. It's only really the fake social media life where I actually come under a lot of fire from people who I feel are morally bankrupt, is the way I would describe some of those people that just go about attacking you because you've got a different view to them. And I care not a jot for their views, and they won't shut me up.
Well, you will never be shut up on this show. Matt Le Tissier, the former Premier League footballer, thank you so much. Now, of course, we will always present both sides of the stories here. ITV has denied Matt's claim about the Jersey Bulls event, saying ITV Channel TV was never planning to cover the event and had absolutely no bearing on this decision. We also today approached the Department of Health for comment about vaccine damage among sports people. They replied, all vaccines being used in the UK have met the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency's strict standards of safety. The Vaccine Damage Payment Scheme provides additional support to help ease the burden on individuals who have, in extremely rare circumstances, been severely disabled due to receiving a government-recommended vaccine. Coming up, as they splash an eye-watering amount of cash, asking their viewers what they like to watch. Is this the 50 millionth nail in the BBC's coffin? Rod Liddle will argue this is yet more proof of the Beeb failing as an institution. He's uncancelled at 10:40. But next, as Spain rebels against drunk tourism, do Brits abroad give the country a bad name? My superstar panel return for the Media Buzz in just 2 minutes' time.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News. Let's return to tomorrow's news site now on our Media Buzz. Lots of front pages have just been delivered. The Daily Telegraph leads with the Prime Minister pledging to send British troops to Finland or Sweden if Russia invaded. And listen to this from those lazy civil servants. They say, quote, work should no longer be considered a place. Hundreds of senior and mid-ranking government officials have tabled motions for returning to flexible working in an open revolt against ministers' plans to get them back into the office. Lazy so-and-sos. The Times also reports on the PM's trip to Finland and the new military pact. It's another fair-mongering front page, though, from The Guardian. Look at this, linking carbon bombs to a climate catastrophe. They say there are major oil and gas projects which they write could threaten to exacerbate the climate crisis, claiming that firms will cash in as the world burns. Some terror-inducing language on The Guardian front page. Who would have guessed it? The Eye reporting on a definitive split within the Tory party over the government's cost of living plans, with key Scottish Tories opposing windfall taxes. The paper also exclusively reports that ministers may delay decommissioning nuclear power stations to save money and help reduce the soaring energy prices in years to come. The Daily Star breaks down the latest revelations in the Rebecca Vardy-Colin Rooney libel trial. I tried to leak story about footballer, says footballer's wife who denies leaking stories on footballer's wife. It really does sum up the absurdity of this whole thing. They add, we think we've got this right, but it's hard to keep up. This is after Vardy admitted in court to leaking information about footballer Danny Drinkwater leaving police custody after crashing his car. She explained she had been deeply affected by the past trauma of an ex, killing two in a car crash, and insisted her demand for payment was not serious. Sorry. The Mirror, Daily Mirror, leads with Tory MP Lee Anderson's comments where he accused some families of only using food banks because they've never learned to cook. And the Daily Mail. Va-va-va-voom. OK, I'm going to get to something that's caught my eye. But in the serious news, it reports Rishi Sunak has ordered officials to examine plans for a windfall tax on energy giants in a bid to tackle the cost of living crisis. Meanwhile, our glamorous Amanda Patel featured at the top looking rather beautiful as she talks about life and calm down, Adam Brooks, and sex after 60. She's here with Ashley James on our Superstar panel too. Amanda, I think you look sensational. You look like Lady Gaga. Oh, my goodness.
Can I just say, I thought it was Cat Slater.
Oh,
Enders.
How dare you? Can we put that front page
have a
up
duff.
again?
You are horrible.
How dare you?
I like
Adam
Cat Slater.
Brooks. Oh, look. I mean, actually, Natalie Cassidy, a very beautiful woman. There's nothing wrong with being compared to Cat Slater, by the way, but I think you look absolutely
I think you look lovely, Amanda. I told you that already.
Don't you think it's a bit severe?
Have you had work done?
Oh, stop it. Since yesterday when I did the shoot. No, I have not.
Just airbrush, darling.
OK, so you're revealing all about your sex life in the Daily Mail tomorrow. Anything you want to tell us?
No, not everything. I'm just talking about having, when you get to 60, which I'm now past by 4 years, you kind of think about your life. You think, do I really want to be doing the Dan Wootton show? every Wednesday night. You think about these things, Dan. So how about being a bit nicer to me?
How dare she? Now, if I were to name 3 things I love most about Brits, would probably be our stiff upper lip, our unwavering patriotism, and our love of a party. The drinking culture here has always been something of a foreign concept to our boring neighbours on the continent. But an alarming Big Brother-style crackdown holiday hotspot, the Costa del Sol, has pledged to take action against so-called drunken tourism, with plans to introduce noise monitors in apartments frequented by Brits abroad. Malaga Mayor Francesco de la Torre promised heavy fines against stag and hen do's and other revellers, stating, "We are not going to tolerate an uncontrolled city." Meanwhile, the government of the Balearic Islands, which include Mallorca, Menorca and Ibiza, has issued a decree limiting visitors to 6 drinks a day in certain resorts, which can only be consumed during lunch and dinner, and a further infringement on our civil liberties to get drunk. I mean, how dare these Spanish killjoys dictate how Brits injecting much-needed post-COVID cash into their economy have a good time? According to Statista, tourists from the UK spent over £15.3 billion in Spain in 2019, so I say let them order as many fish bowls and dos fry-ups, por favor, as they want.
Por
Did I get it right?
I've no idea. It just sounded totally ridiculous.
But look, this is so infuriating, Amanda. How dare they?
They've got no right to. Guess what is the biggest input into the Spanish economy?
What?
Tourism.
By Brits abroad.
Even during lockdown, we were spending something like €3 billion every year. Normally we spend about 7. And I was chatting to my lovely 22-year-old friend Kane, who's an expert on these things.
Is he a gardener?
I said, No, he's not my gardener, darling.
Right, OK.
He said, do you go to Spain? He said, yeah. I said, you drink a lot? He said, yeah, more than I could, but less than I should, which I think is a good policy in life. They should go and suck on their sangria.
Ashley James, are you embarrassed by Brits abroad?
Yeah, not Brits abroad. I'm embarrassed by the stag and hen culture.
That's Brits abroad, though, isn't
but I've lived in France, and they have, like, we had so much fun in France, but you'd always spot the Brits. It's like that binge drinking culture, and it is embarrassing.
The French are so dull.
Hang on, I love a good time and I love a drink, but it's just the French. Actually, I won't be able to say what they call us on TV, but it's F off, because all you hear down the street is like effing and blinding, and I love to have a good time. I disagree with putting limits on drinks, especially because it's all inclusive. And if you pay for all inclusive,
we want to drink as much as we damn well can.
Also, it's only going to impact the poor, like the poorer people that are paying like their hard-earned, well-deserved
Adam Brooks,
money.
I bet you were a lager lout, and you.
Yeah, look, it's very hard for me to say it should stop when I was that young boozy Herbert out in Magaluf and whatever. Now I'm an old family man. I can see why the authorities want to stop, but all these rules like noise limiters.
I'm not going to go there.
Rooms. No,
sorry, if they're telling me how much to drink, I'm not going to go there.
Don't go to Spain. Simple as that.
Let's also remember a lot of these businesses.
Elsewhere.
A lot of these businesses are owned by Spanish people and cater for that culture. So a lot of jobs will be lost, from this.
I know many of you will sneer, but it's Eurovision week. And do you know what? That's a little bit like Christmas for me. And my goodness, many of the entries are not disappointing, like Serbia, which has decided to reference the dopey Duchess of Woke. No, that wasn't some weird fever dream. That's Serbian singer Konstrakta's song titled In a Healthy Body. And it gave Meghan Markle's hair a shout-out for being, quote, deeply hydrated. If you thought the Serbian version was weird, I'm just going to read you the English lyrics, OK? They go, I wonder what's the secret behind Meghan Markle's healthy hair. I wonder what's the secret. I wonder what's the secret behind Meghan Markle's healthy hair. I wonder what's the secret. I think that deep hydration is what it is. Despite Serbia's attempt for this year's strangest entry, Ukraine still the favourite to win with their entry Shadows of Forgotten Ancestors. But the UK entry Spaceman also in with a shot, according to the bookies. I can't believe it, to be honest. I can't believe it. They do hate us so much. But it really would be Putin's worst nightmare, wouldn't it, if the UK was number 2 and Ukraine was number 1. Ashley James, Adam Brooks and Amanda Platel do stand by, because coming up, one of the top pop stars of the 90s will be crowned Greatest Britain for a reason that's just insania. Actually, I don't know if he's going to be crowned Greatest Britain. He will be nominated. I make that decision as to who wins. Thank you very much. But next, as the BBC pour an outrageous £50 million down the drain, researching what viewers are watching, Rod Liddle is here to let rip on the BBC and their scandalous spending. He's uncancelled right after we take a quick look at tomorrow's show.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, with man of the match under threat and knee-taking rife, is football becoming too woke? One of the beautiful game's best-loved figures, Harry Redknapp, joins me live. With Starmer exposed, is it time for left and right to declare a lockdown amnesty? Spiked Online's Brendan O'Neill lays out that argument. Plus, unfiltered opinion from social media sensation Zuby, political firebrand Anne Widdecombe, and my superstar panel featuring Conservative commentator Dominique Samuels, former Tory London mayoral candidate Sean Bailey, and author and journalist Amy Nicole. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News.
It's time now for Uncancelled. This is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, if the BBC isn't harassing pensioners for unpaid licence fees or forcing woke claptrap down our throats for £159 a year, it's bound to be doing only one other thing: wasting our money. Auntie's latest back of a fag packet plan to blow a chunk of its ever-dwindling budget is to spend £50 million. I mean, honestly, £50 million. That's more than what this channel spends an entire year on market research to find out what its viewers watch. Yep, that's right. Our world-famous broadcaster that has been flying the flag for nearly 100 years is now totally clueless about its audience. But we knew that anyway, didn't we? It was wrong on Brexit, the general election, Trump, and God knows whatever else. So I guess it's no surprise. Rod Liddle, does this £50 million splurge on surveys prove that the BBC is a dying institution?
Yes, I think it does. It's very funny, isn't it? You know, the BBC has 22,000 employees. Is not one of those 22,000 capable or charged with the task of finding out what people might quite like to watch on their televisions or listen to on their radios? 22,000 people, and no one seems to have a grip of what is meant to be broadcast to the populace, the people who pay for their existence. No one's got a clue. And so it tells you two things. The first thing and the most important thing it tells you is that the BBC is effectively saying, actually, we no longer know one way or the other what the public wants. And the second thing it tells you is that it has money to burn, because whilst the BBC still has its licence fee, and this is all tied up with why it doesn't know what the public wants, it faces no commercial pressure whatsoever. And so that the BBC producers and the apparatchiks there can commission whatever woke rubbish and progressive dramas and boring, godforsaken comedy programmes that fit in with the shibboleths that they all believe but are not remotely funny or entertaining, without any fear of censure, because, of course, they're not in the commercial world. So that's kind of the first thing it tells you. The second thing it tells you is that they're getting towards the end of their tether, because I think they do realise, I certainly think that Director General Tim Davie realises, that the BBC actually actively despises and derides the aspirations, the culture, the way of life of the vast majority of people who pay for the BBC's existence via their statutory tax of 150 quid a year. So it is lost on all possible levels. And it's terribly sad in a way for someone like me who remembers the good things about the BBC as well as the many, many bad things.
Well, you worked there, Rod. A lot of people won't remember that, but you were there. You were in a senior role.
Yeah. God help me. Yes, I was, and it had already started then, Dan. You know, all that rubbish had already started. We had a community fairs kind of department, which used to come down to me and they used to ask me when I was editor of the Today programme, what positive stories are you telling us about Africa this week? And I would say none whatsoever, because there aren't any. We are not here to socially engineer the world and to make people think that Africa is actually a vibrant, thriving, democratic place, simply because you want people to believe that. And the trouble is that that's the way the BBC's gone. And the truth about the BBC was once said by its former Director General, Sir Hugh Green, back in the 1960s, who said, we are going to educate this public. We're going to give them programmes which they won't like and which they'll complain about, and we won't care because we know what's right. And that is the same thing which they think today. And it's the thing which runs through all their stuff, whether it's Doctor Who lecturing people on transgenderism and Brexit, whether it's the comedians who are all from the left, or the dramas which are predictable because if there's a black character in it, he's got to be a good guy. If there's a white male in it, he's got to be a bad guy, etc., etc. It's all choreographed, telegraphed. We know what it stands for, we know what it's about, and we don't like it anymore, Dan.
Well, indeed, and Rod, these contracts are just genuinely mind-blowing for me, given the size of them, you know. And one of them is worth over £40 million alone. And Rod, the issue is we know who these contracts will be given to, who they'll be handed out to, which are the people who dominate the TV industry, the liberal folk who are based in London, who are all friends with the BBC executives. It actually just feels completely corrupt for me. I mean, one contract, Rod, worth more than £42 million alone. It's just so wrong.
Well, it's inconceivable that any private company would do that.
Yeah.
You know, any truly private company wouldn't do that. Government departments will do that, and the BBC will do it because it's got money to burn. And over the years, you know, when I was there, and since then and before then, they would invite in consultants to tell them how to run the place. Because, of course, with 22,000 people working there and about 21,500 senior executives, which is how it seemed to me, there was no one who could actually run the place properly. And consultants would come in and be paid an enormous amount of money, and nothing would change. Nothing would ever change. And every Director General who's come in has said, we're going to have a bonfire. It's always a bonfire. We're going to have a bonfire of the middle management. We're going to divert money back into programme making. And they never, ever do. They always increase the middle management, spend more on consultancies and less on programming, so that in the end, nobody will watch Doctor Who because it's a pile of crap.
Yes, and that much we do know. Rod Little, brilliant analysis as ever as to why the BBC is now very much a dying institution. Thank you, Rod. We'll speak next week. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass. My superstar panel back with me now. Amanda Platel, who is your nominee for today's greatest Britain?
Well, after her appearance at the state opening of Parliament, it's got to be Queen Camilla, who has not put a foot wrong.
Not yet, she's not, Amanda. Be very careful with me today.
Who has not put a foot wrong since she stabbed Diana in the back with one of her stilettos. And she was looking all too lovingly at the Queen's crown for my comfort.
Future Queen consort. Can we just get that straight? Adam Brooks, your
Mine is Peter Andre for putting up with his name being dragged through the mud in the Wagatha Christie court case.
Poor Peter. This is so unfair.
Poor
He's
man.
got nothing to do with this, does he? And, I mean, what are people talking about? What came up, Adam? I don't even want
to discuss it. The man's code, I can't discuss it, but it's not something that you'd want all over the internet, put it this way.
Amanda, what were you going to say?
No, just say don't say it.
Okay.
Enough damage has been done.
Yeah, no.
A man's manhood should remain private.
That. It's completely unfair. He's a great guy. Ashley James.
Are we doing the Jackass? Or
no, Greatest Britain. Greatest Britain.
The Greatest Britain. Right. My Greatest Britain is the absolutely amazingly inspirational Deborah James, a.k.a. Bowel Babe. Yeah. She has raised over 200 million last time I checked in just over 24 hours.
I think it's 2 million. 2 million, which is incredible. I reckon she'll get to 200, though, because this is now an international campaign.
Lady.
It's just amazing. Everything she's done to take the stigma out of bowel cancer, her positivity. It's a very sad story, but I know that her legacy will live on.
And the incredible thing is, even more people getting involved after the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge tweeted about Deborah James tonight, saying every now and then someone captures the heart of the nation with their zest for life and tenacious desire to give back to society. Bowel Babe is one of those special people. Her tireless efforts to raise awareness of bowel cancer and end the stigma of treatment are inspiring. Oh, my goodness. Of course, second night in a row. But she's changing. She's making a huge change. Deborah James, our greatest Britain. I don't know if anyone has been the greatest Britain 2 days in a row, but I can't think of anyone who deserves it more. Union Jackass time, Amanda Platel, your nominee.
It's got to be Michael Gove, who was making fun of, in a Scouse accent, of people who are kind of living on the breadline.
Should we play it again?
Play it again. Play it again, Sam.
So fun.
Dan.
Turning it into a major capital letters, a big news story.
It's unforgivable, not least that Liverpool is my hometown, but also because this guy has no problems with money because he lives in a grace and favour multi-million-pound apartment in central London. Not a good look,
Adam Brooks, your nominee.
I changed mine today to Sadiq Khan.
Oh, good. I convinced you, did I?
You did, for his wasteful trip. His wasteful trip to America when there's some real problems in London, and the fact that he's the worst London mayor that we could ever hope for.
And Ashley James, your Union Jackass nominee.
My one is Rebecca Vardy, just because I find it absolutely astonishing that she has brought this court case into the courts. It's costing so much money, and she's there trying to defend not selling stories, and we've learned that she's been selling stories. It's ridiculous.
By the way, can I just say, nothing wrong with someone selling a story.
No, but own it.
Nothing wrong with someone selling a story. What's wrong with it? Goodness me, we all want to read the stories. Look, very good choice, but of course it's Sadiq Khan, isn't it? It's Sadiq Khan wasting Londoners' money on this jolly around the US so that he can speak to lots of doped-up people in California about legalising drugs. I'm outraged by it. I'm so mad about it. Oh, goodness me. Adam Brooks. I'm Amanda Patel. Ashley James, my superstar panel, thank you so much. I'm back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Headliners is next, though. Good night.
Hello and welcome to the latest from the Met Office. I'm Aidan McGivern. Drier and clearer for many over the next 24 hours following Wednesday's wet weather, but there will be further showers in the north, and those showers will continue over the next few days across northern parts of the UK because we'll be close to high pressure here. But the more persistent rain that we've seen through England and Wales through the day, well, that clears overnight, and hence clear skies fairly widely across England, Wales, eastern and southern parts of Scotland, as well as Northern Ireland, but towards the north and the west of Scotland, we keep some showers going, 1 or 2 into the north coast of Northern Ireland, Cumbria, for example, as well. Away from the showers, temperatures dropping to 6 to 8 Celsius, by and large, a cooler, fresher start to Thursday compared to Wednesday, but a brighter start certainly across much of England and Wales, much sunnier conditions compared to Wednesday morning, and a dry day to come for most. But 1 or 2 showers will develop across Wales and the southwest, Northern England as well. Most of the showers, however, will continue to affect northern and western Scotland and Northern Ireland. 13 to 14 Celsius here, 17 to 20 for parts of England and Wales, with the sunny spells feeling pleasantly warm. But there will be a bit of a breeze, especially in the north, and that will carry further rain or showers into Scotland, Northern England, as well as Northern Ireland during the evening on Thursday. Increasingly, those showers becoming confined, however, by the start of Friday, north of the central belt. Mild start to Friday. In places, it will be 10 to 12 degrees. A bright start in the south. The further north you are, the cloudier it will be, the breezier it will be. But I think, actually, for much of England and Wales, it's a dry day. And for much of southern Scotland, Northern Ireland, it's also fine, but cloudy and breezy. The rain largely affecting northern and western Scotland. And even here, it dries up and brightens up on Saturday and into Sunday. Plenty of warm sunshine developing.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening and welcome to Headliners. I am Simon Evans, and very shortly myself and my two comedy guests here will be taking a look at tomorrow morning's newspaper.